Hey guys, it's Mike here, and I just saw Jumanji The Next Level, the third movie in the Jumanji film series. Now, as a kid, the original Jumanji was one of my favorite movies. It was a nostalgic classic and a quintessential 90s movie, with an interesting premise about a magic board game that comes to life with lasting and terrible repercussions. Of course, Robin Williams was great in it, and despite the CG having aged since then, it was one of the pioneers of the technology, during an era when it was still relatively new. And aside from that, most of the movie still holds up well to this day. The sequel of sorts, Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle, didn't quite live up to the original, going in a more technological route involving video games in the modern generation. However, it was still a rather fun adventure movie with some good humor from the main cast, such as The Rock, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black. And it gave some fun meta commentary on gaming and some of the quirks that would come from being inside one. It wasn't a necessary sequel, and unfortunately didn't have the late Robin Williams in the film, but it massively overperformed at the box office, so a sequel was bound to happen. Enter Jumanji The Next Level, which I wasn't particularly excited about going in. The trailers made the movie look too similar to the second one, and the idea of Kevin Hart and The Rock doing Danny Glover and Danny DeVito impressions for 2 hours seemed like it was going to get old really fast. However, upon seeing the movie, I was pleasantly surprised to find it was both funny and entertaining. So let me get into that now. Taking place sometime after Jumanji 2, the group of friends are getting back together after going off to college and spending time apart. However, they're shocked to find that one of them is trapped inside of the Jumanji video game world. As a result, the group has to go back and save their friend. However, with some key differences. This time, it's not just the teens, but also Danny DeVito and Danny Glover join the game. Together, the group must overcome the older generation's ignorance of video games and traverse an entirely new level and obstacles along the way. It's basically Hunter x Hunter's Greed Island, except without the Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, the film starts off a little slow as it catches us up on the current lives of the main group, what they're doing, and how they get involved in the plot. Much like the last movie, this part is one of the weaker aspects of the film. However, it gets good when they finally go into Jumanji, and it really turns up the humor of the film. Seeing the impressions of different characters as they take on these avatars much like in the last movie, however with them now being in different bodies than before, and seeing how the actors show off their comedic range is a lot of fun, be it Jack Black, Karen Gillan, and of course The Rock and Kevin Hart, who are the funniest in the film. They have really good on-screen chemistry and some fun back-and-forth exchanges, which is why they're in so many movies together recently, although I'm sure that some people may have gotten tired of them at this point considering they are verging on oversaturation. Honestly, going in I expected the impressions of Danny Glover and Danny DeVito to get really old really fast, but somehow they were able to make it work and maintain the fun throughout the film. And honestly, all of the actors do a good job of making you believe that they're actually another person inside of these avatars' bodies, which was one of the best aspects of the previous movie. And another fun casting choice was Rory McCann as Jurgen the Brutal, with I'm sure most people recognizing him from playing the iconic character of the Hound on Game of Thrones. And it's cool to see him in this movie for what screen time he gets, although much like the villain of the last movie, he's basically just an NPC character who exists to be evil and serve as an obstacle for the characters. And I was also pleasantly surprised to find out that this entire movie isn't just a shameless rehash of the previous one, pretty much replaying the exact same plot from before, but rather it truly is a next level or a next section in a video game campaign in which the characters go to new locations such as a desert and are involved in different scenarios and different roles that they have to play, doing stuff that's akin to like a stealth mission or a dialogue-driven mission at various points. Now, there is a similar setup in which they have to get a MacGuffin, which is a precious stone, much like in the previous movie, and there certainly are callbacks throughout, but it isn't necessarily just a copy and paste. Now, with all of this being said, there are some things that did kind of detract from the film along the way. One of them being the exposition, especially early on, as it seemed like more often than not, characters' dialogue would exist just to tell the audience information either about them and their life during the period of time since the last movie, or just general information which they could have easily shown instead of told. Also, the way that everyone actually goes into the game in this version is kind of contrived as compared to the previous movies. One of the cool aspects of the previous two movies is that the game would actually choose them and the time in which you would want them to play, usually which would be accompanied by the drums that only the characters involved could hear. However, in this version, one of the characters goes into the game intentionally, which I feel like is a little underwhelming by comparison, and just felt like the writers needed some excuse to get them to go back into the game. And speaking of the writing, I feel like certain plot elements that they introduced, particularly early on, had a lot more potential than was explored in this movie. Such as one particular pool that the characters go into, and results in some big changes that we didn't see in the previous movie. It reminded me of something out of the most recent arc of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. However, they don't do much with it come the end of the film. And of course, in a movie like this, there's bound to be a lot of CGI, which I feel like given the budget of the film, they certainly could have done a better job with in terms of making it look realistic. But at least the movie does have the built-in excuse of it being a video game world, so they can kind of get away with it. So overall, Jumanji is a fun threequel that has its flaws, and I'm not too sure it's quite as good as the previous one, and certainly not the original. But I didn't go into it with those expectations. And overall, I think it's an entertaining time at the movies. If you love the first two, then I'm sure you'll have fun watching this in theaters, or when it comes out on Blu-ray. It's not necessarily a movie I think you need to rush out and see right now, but if the movie looks fun to you based on the trailers and this review, then I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. It's definitely better than some of The Rock's more recent movies, such as Skyscraper and Hobbs and Shaw. So have you guys seen Jumanji The Next Level, and what did you think about it? Let me know down below. If you like this video, then make sure to like it and share it around on social media. It really helps the channel. Thanks for watching, and make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and enable notifications so you can see all of my content right away when it comes out.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.